"Go away. You're not welcome." That's what my son-in-law shouted at me, the owner of the house, when I tried to sit at the Christmas table I had spent the entire morning preparing. He seemed to forget that he lived under my roof, free of rent and responsibility. Yet he dismissed me like hired help. I rose without a word, stepped toward the front door, and made a decision that stunned everyone present and turned the world of the traders upside down. The smell of roasting turkey had filled the kitchen long before dawn. I had been standing at the counter in the dim morning light, hands working through the stuffing, sage, onion, celery, while the darkness outside pressed against the window above the sink. Something about this Christmas felt off. The house was mine, paid off in 2011. Yet lately I felt like a visitor trespassing in someone else's routine. I had begun cooking around 5 a.m. The 20-pound turkey glistened in the oven, cranberry sauce bubbled quietly on the back burner, and trays of vegetables waited their turn. Even with my stiff fingers and arthritic joints, my hands moved out of habit, guided by decades of holiday preparations. No one had offered help. No one had even bothered to come downstairs. As I chopped carrots, I remembered a phone call from 3 years earlier. Amanda had sounded shaken. "Dad, we need help. Michael's company collapsed, just for a week or two until we figure things out. Come home, sweetheart. Stay as long as you need," I had told her. They arrived with 3 suitcases and hollow eyes. Sterling Construction had imploded overnight. Bad investments, worse partners. Amanda had hugged me tightly right there in this kitchen, crying into my shoulder. "Thank you, Dad. We'll get back on our feet soon." Michael had shaken my hand with a desperate grip. "You're saving our lives, Waldo." I pulled out the good china now, the plates my wife and I bought together in '95. As I set them on the table, another memory surfaced. 6 months after they'd moved in, I had been setting the same table when Michael wandered in. "Waldo, you really should update this place, the carpets, the furniture. It's all so dated." "I like it this way," I'd replied. He'd laughed that condescending laugh I would come to hear hundreds of times. "Comfortable for you maybe, but we have friends coming over." I folded napkins into neat triangles, recalling the $45,000 check I had written to keep creditors away. The canceled check still sits in my filing cabinet, February 2022. Amanda had cried with gratitude. "You're saving our lives, Waldo." Michael had clasped my hands. "We'll pay you back for everything." Time passed like water through fingers. Month 12, I was watching the evening news when Michael snatched the remote. I was watching that game, old man. Month 18, I overheard Amanda in the hallway. "Yeah, we're stuck living with my dad. It's suffocating." Small humiliations had piled up. Being asked to keep quiet after 9 p.m. Having my mail opened by mistake. Being told they needed space in my living room. Around 3:00, the doorbell rang. Michael's voice boomed through the entryway as he greeted guests, as if he owned the place. "Jason, Melissa, come in." I stayed in the kitchen, giving the turkey one last baste. Through the doorway, I watched Jason swagger in loud, confident, working in tech. Melissa scanned everything with that look of constant judgment. David arrived next, one of Michael's former partners, followed by 4 more people whose names I would learn soon enough. "Thanks for having us, Mike," Jason said, shaking his hand. I stepped into the dining room, extending my hand in welcome. "This is Michael slid an arm around Jason, steering him away. "Come on, let me show you where the drinks are." Amanda made eggnog. His eyes flicked toward me like I was barely noticeable. "That's just Amanda's dad. He's staying with us for the holidays." Staying with them, the reversal was complete. I retreated to the kitchen. Through the doorway, I watched Michael pour my wine into my glasses, bragging about his plans to renovate my dining room. Amanda drifted past, smiling politely at guests, never meeting my eyes. My granddaughter Jenny slipped in next to me as I checked the oven temperature. "Grandpa," she whispered, "why don't you tell them this is your house?" I squeezed her hand gently. "Sometimes, Jenny, people reveal who they really are. But it's not fair. No, I said, smiling, it's not. I brought the turkey out, a perfect golden 20-pound centerpiece. Every guest's eyes widened, but their admiration turned toward Michael. Mike, this looks incredible. You outdid yourself. Michael nodded modestly. Thanks, been working on it all day. I stood in the doorway holding the empty platter, jaw tight. Amanda arranged dishes with hostess precision, playing her role in a home that wasn't hers. Everyone, take a seat, Michael announced. The table had 12 settings, everything arranged just right. But I immediately saw what they had done. There was no place for me. I hovered at the edge of my own dining room as strangers filled the seats I had set. For 26 years, I had sat at the head of this table. I carried this table through the front door myself in 1998, refinished it twice, celebrated every milestone on it. I stepped forward and reached for my chair, the chair I had always claimed. The room fell quiet as the wooden legs scraped against the floor. Conversations halted. Forks froze midair. I lowered myself toward the seat when Michael suddenly slammed both hands onto the table. The noise rattled glasses, sent a napkin drifting to the floor. He shot to his feet, chair skidding behind him. Get out, he barked. You're not invited. This is our family table. I froze halfway down, then stood slowly. My voice came out low and steady. Michael, did you forget whose house we're in? The question hung in the air. Reactions blossomed around the table. Jason's fork paused inches from his mouth. Melissa's eyes widened. David stared at his plate. Guests stiffened like statues. Jenny rose halfway from her seat. Dad, stop, Amanda whispered. Not now, Jennifer, Michael snapped. This doesn't concern you, but Grandpa, I said, not now. Michael's face was crimson, veins standing out on his neck. He leaned toward me, hands still on my table. In the house where we live, you follow our rules. Be grateful we tolerate you. Go to the kitchen, or better yet, go for a walk. The adults are celebrating. We tolerate you. The words pierced deeper than anything before. The room fell into a heavy silence. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Someone's breathing grew audible. A clock ticked in the hallway. Traffic murmured distantly outside. Michael pointed toward the kitchen, then toward the door, dismissing me with sharp, unmistakable gestures. Amanda stared at her plate, refusing to look up. Her silence hurt more than Michael's rage. Something shifted inside me, not anger but clarity. For 3 years I had made excuses for them. They needed time. They were family. They'd repay their debt. But this wasn't family anymore. These were strangers who had gradually consumed my home, erasing me one dinner at a time. In that moment, a voice from long ago, my wife's voice, cut through the noise, fierce and unwavering. Never let anyone make you small in your own home. I turned away from the table, not rushed, not sluggish, but with deliberate steps. My footsteps rang over the hardwood I'd refinished in 2008 as I moved through the dining room archway past the furniture I'd chosen and the photographs I'd hung. I could feel Michael's smirk without looking. He assumed I was surrendering, skulking off in embarrassment. I stopped at the front door, laid my hand on the brass knob I'd installed 15 years earlier, and turned it. The heavy oak swung inward under my pull, and a blast of December air rushed in cold, clean, and startling. Maybe 40 degrees, perhaps less. The darkness outside widened like a black rectangle, swallowing the warm yellow light of the house. I stood in the doorway and faced them. Everyone in this house who is not the owner, you have 5 minutes to leave, I said. This is my house. I bought it in 1998. Michael, Amanda, pack your things and go now. Michael laughed. An actual laugh, sharp and incredulous. You're joking. Still, guests were already rising. Some awkwardly reaching for coats draped over chair backs, offering mumbled apologies. Jason gave Michael a squeeze on the shoulder. We should probably go. No, sit down, Michael muttered. He's bluffing. Melissa was already at the door. Come on, Jason. This is family. We'll call you later, Jason said as he followed his wife. In under 90 seconds, everyone had filed out, David nodding awkwardly as he left, saying, "Thanks, sorry." The rest slipped away in a hush, eyes down, avoiding contact. The door stood open, and the cold wind poured through. That left only 4 of us. Michael remained at the table, but his swagger had cracks. "You can't just kick us out. We live here," he protested. I stayed in the doorway, the December wind at my back. "You live here as my guests. I'm asking you to leave." Amanda finally spoke, voice breaking. "Dad, please. This is insane." I looked at my daughter. Our eyes met for the first time that night. "Amanda, you have a choice. Make it." Her reply was immediate. "We're not going anywhere." Michael's defiance blazed up again. "You're a crazy old man," he spat. I reached into my right pocket and pulled out my smartphone. I'm not clumsy with technology. I taught myself and kept up with it. I unlocked the screen, opened the phone app, and Michael's face shifted from red to drained faster than a traffic light. "Then I'm calling the police," I said. His confidence wavered, his voice lacked conviction. My thumb moved methodically. 911. Then I lifted the phone to my ear. Michael stood frozen beside my china in my dining room. Amanda had both hands over her mouth, and Jenny watched with enormous eyes. The line rang, 1-2, then a click, 911, "What's your emergency?" The room erupted with Michael's mocking laughter. This was peak scorn. The old man has lost it. "Sit down, Waldo. Stop embarrassing yourself." I kept my gaze on the open doorway and the cold rushing in. "Yes, I need assistance. There are people in my house refusing to leave after I asked them to. The address is 2847 Maple Grove Drive, Land Park District." Amanda's laugh, when it came, trembled. She was finally reading the room more clearly than her husband. "Are you in danger, sir? Are they threatening you?" The operator asked. "No immediate danger, but they won't leave my property. I am the sole owner." "Officers are being dispatched. Estimated arrival 12 minutes. Please stay on the line if you feel unsafe." "I'll be fine, thank you." The click that ended the call felt enormous in the quiet house. Michael's laughter dissolved as if someone had cut its throat. His smug face melted like wax. Color drained from his cheeks to a pallid white in seconds. Amanda let out a sound that wasn't words at first. A raw, terrified wail. Then, "Dad, what are you doing? This is us. This is your family." Jenny began to cry quietly, small sobs meant to make herself invisible. Michael snapped back into aggression, now edged with desperation. "You can't do this. This is our home. We have rights. I stayed where I was, wind at my back." "This is my home. You have 12 minutes to gather what you can and leave, or explain to the police why you're trespassing." Hearing the word trespassing made everything real. Michael looked around the room like he was seeing the house. My house, for the first time. Whose house is this? He seemed to ask himself. "Dad, please," Amanda begged. "We have nowhere to go. It's Christmas night." Her voice cracked on that last word. "That's why I'm giving you time to pack," I said. I could have had them removed immediately, I thought, and guilt tugged at me. Then Michael's earlier line echoed. "Be grateful we tolerate you." The memory hardened me. It steelified my resolve. A few of the guests who hadn't fled completely, Jason, Melissa, David, grabbed coats clumsily, murmuring offers half finished. Jason squeezed Michael's shoulder again. "Call me tomorrow. We'll figure something out," he said with eyes that clearly meant, "I'm not getting involved." Melissa touched Amanda's arm. "Do you need—" she began, then let the sentence trail. 3 minutes later, they were all gone. They're swift eggs. It was a quiet verdict. They chose the homeowner. Now only family remained. Michael snapped into motion. "Amanda, pack bags. We're not staying here with a crazy person." His words were loud and defiant, but his actions betrayed the panic beneath. Upstairs, drawers slammed and things were flung into suitcases. Jenny came down with a small backpack, tears carving tracks down her face. She approached me slowly. "Grandpa, I'm sorry," she whispered. My voice softened for the first time that evening. You have nothing to apologize for, sweetheart. They shouldn't have treated you that way. I paused, steady. No, but it's necessary to set things right. Red and blue lights painted the curtains as two officers approached. Rodriguez, a man in his 40s with a demeanor that suggested he'd seen everything twice, and Park, a sharp-eyed officer in her 30s. Sir, you called about a trespassing situation? Rodriguez asked, professional and calm. Yes, officer. I'm Waldo Ross, owner. These people were guests. I asked them to leave and they refused. May I see identification and proof of ownership? I had my driver's license ready. The deed was in my office. One moment. I walked to my study, opened the second drawer of the filing cabinet, and withdrew the manila folder labeled property documents. My hands were steady. I realized I'd been preparing for a moment like this without knowing it. The deed was plainly marked. Property purchased April 1998, sole owner Waldo Ross. Officer Park read it carefully. There's no lease agreement, she observed. No lease, I confirmed. They'd been family staying temporarily. That arrangement had ended. Michael and Amanda came down with hastily packed bags and froze when they saw the police. Michael babbled, trying to explain, words tripping over one another. Officers, this is a family misunderstanding. He's my father-in-law. We live here. This is our home, too. Rodriguez's features didn't change. Do you have any documentation proving legal tenancy? Lease agreements, rental receipts? No, but we've lived here 3 years. We have rights. Look up squatters' rights or adverse possession. Officer Park softened slightly, but remained factual. Adverse possession requires specific legal conditions, and typically a much longer time frame. This is private property. The owner is asking you to leave, but we're family. Amanda's voice wavered, cracking at the edges. Rodriguez turned toward me. Sir, do you want these individuals removed from the property? I looked at Amanda, my daughter, and behind her I saw the accumulation of 3 years of disrespect, of being minimized in my own home, of slowly being erased. Yes, officer, I want them to leave. They don't have permission to be here. Rodriguez faced them. You need to vacate the premises now. Gather what you have with you. Anything else can be arranged later through civil channels. Michael's face twisted with a mixture of rage and humiliation. Amanda clutched her bag, mascara streaking down her cheeks in dark, uneven tracks. Jenny stood small and frightened, gripping her lone backpack. One by one they walked past me. As he passed, Michael hissed quietly, venom practically dripping from his voice. You'll regret this, old man. I regret many things, Michael. This isn't one of them. They moved down the walkway toward the street, police lights still pulsing against the dark. I could see curtains shift in nearby windows, neighbors peeking out up and down the block. Michael turned, ready to shout something, but Rodriguez cut him off with a firm, "Keep moving, sir." And they kept moving. The night crawled by in fragments. I slept poorly, not from remorse, but from an unfamiliar stillness. No footsteps overhead, no midnight arguments vibrating through the walls, no shower roaring to life at 6 a.m. The silence felt louder than any of the noise had ever been. At dawn, I rose to the quiet house, finally mine again. I walked through each room deliberately. Master bedroom, hallway, guest rooms where they'd stayed, bathroom, kitchen, living room, dining room. Small details revealed their absence. Jenny's hairbrush gone from the bathroom counter. Michael's construction magazines missing from the coffee table. Amanda's coffee mug absent from the sink. The dining room table still held the remains of the abandoned Christmas dinner. Cold, stiff turkey, untouched vegetables. The plates I'd set so carefully now looked like monuments to waste. I didn't clean anything. I simply took in the scene, as if the house were speaking last night's story through physical remnants. By 8 o'clock, I made my first decision. The locks needed changing. I didn't trust Michael not to return with his key and take whatever he felt entitled to. I called Sacramento Lock and Key. I need all exterior locks replaced today if possible. We can be there by 10:00. 3 doors, emergency service. That'll be $450. Do it, I said. With 2 hours to wait, I turned to productivity. In my study, I pulled out my personal ledger. Insurance men track everything. Numbers don't lie, and I wanted the truth laid out in black ink. The memories came back with each entry. March 2022, the first line, $45,000 sterling construction debt repayment. I remembered that call clearly. Amanda sobbing, "Dad, they're going to take everything." Michael desperate, trying to maintain dignity. "You're a lifesaver, Waldo. Never Dad. Always Waldo." I wrote the check the same day. Michael promised repayment within 2 years, plus interest. The check cleared, the creditors backed off, the promise dissolved. July 2022, $8,000, bankruptcy legal fee. Morrison and Associates. Michael couldn't afford a lawyer to properly close his company. I paid directly, waited in that downtown lobby while he signed the papers. Afterward, Amanda had said, "Thank you, Daddy." She'd called me Daddy then. But it was the smaller expenses that accumulated most painfully. I flipped through the utilities, electricity from $150 to $300 after they moved in, water from $50 to $130. Gas, internet, groceries, everything creeping higher. I was supporting 4 people instead of 1, roughly an extra $150 a month for 36 months, about $54,000, combined with the documented $53,000 in direct payments that put the total somewhere between $17,000 and $114,000, depending on how one categorized things. I mentally settled on about $78,000 in documented cash and roughly $30,000 in living expenses. Whatever the exact figure, the total was staggering. I ran my finger down what I mentally called the gratitude timeline. First 6 months, frequent thanks. Months 6 through 12, occasional acknowledgement. Year 2, appreciation turned into expectation. By year 3, criticism had replaced gratitude entirely. The final 6 months, not a single thank you. At exactly 10, a white van pulled up bearing the Sacramento lock and key logo. The locksmith introduced himself as Ted, toolbox in hand. "You want full replacement, not just re-keying. That costs more. I want everything replaced. New hardware." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Someone you don't trust with a key." "Something like that," I said. He nodded. "I see this a lot. Divorce, family disputes honestly. It's hard to say which is worse." He worked quickly. 45 minutes and all 3 doors had brand. New locks. I watched each old lock come off and each new one settle into place. A symbolic renewal. The new keys gleamed untouched. Only I would have copies. At 11, my phone rang. Amanda. I stared at the screen. 1 ring, 2, 3, then I answered, "Dad, please let us come back. We don't have anywhere to go." Her voice was raw, heavy with exhaustion. I kept mine steady. "Where did you sleep last night?" A pause, a familiar shame. "In the car. Walmart parking lot on Florin Road. That hit me hard. My daughter and granddaughter spent Christmas night in a car." A sharp pang of guilt pierced through me. But then, uninvited, Michael's voice echoed in my mind. "Be grateful we tolerate you." I swallowed. "That's unfortunate. What's your plan now? We don't have money for a hotel." Michael's credit cards are maxed. I have $200. She was offering every detail that might trigger my sympathy. I recognized the pattern even while feeling its tug. "We made a mistake. People make mistakes. 3 years of mistakes, Amanda. I'm done financing them. Think about Jenny." "She's 15. I am thinking about Jenny. I'm thinking about the example being set for her. What are we supposed to do?" Her voice cracked into a desperate wail. "What you should have done months ago. Get jobs, find housing." Be adults? Then I hung up. My hand trembled slightly, the first clear sign of the emotional toll. I set the phone face down on the table. That simple motion felt like closing a chapter. I needed to talk to someone. I called Harold Patterson, my neighbor 3 doors down, a retired real estate attorney. We'd played chess every Thursday for 10 years. He arrived within 15 minutes, 2 coffee mugs in hand. We sat on the back porch. The December sun was weak but present. I saw the police car last night, he said. Figured you might need coffee and conversation. You're a good friend, Harold. 20 years of chess games, he replied. I know when you need an opening move and when you need an endgame strategy. This feels like endgame. I told him everything. The Christmas dinner, the insult, the eviction. Harold listened silently, like the lawyer he'd been. When I finished, he took a moment. Waldo, legally and morally, you did everything right. Then why do I feel guilty? Because you're a good man. Good men feel guilt even when justified. He set his mug down, but be ready. They're going to come after you. What do you mean? They might try to sue, claim tenancy rights, maybe even attempt adverse possession, though they don't have a leg to stand on. On what basis? Desperation. Michael's the type who needs to win, even when he's clearly wrong. Harold leaned in. Do you have documentation, proof of every payment, every check, every receipt? I nodded. I keep records. He smiled knowingly. Of course you do. You're an insurance man. You document everything. His expression grew serious. Get a lawyer, a good one, not when they sue now. Be proactive. I know someone, Harold said. Robert Morrison. We go back 20 years, call him today. The sun warmed the porch just enough to take the edge off the winter air. Harold's coffee mug sat between us on the table. My phone rested beside it. I picked it up, scrolled through my contacts, found Morrison's name. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long moment. The next phase of this ordeal was beginning. The following week passed like a chess match, quiet, deliberate moves, every one strategic. Days unfolded in the reclaimed silence of my house. Nights were spent planning what came next. 7 days after Christmas, I drove downtown to meet with Robert Morrison. Highway 99 south from Land Park. I'd taken that route for 30 years. Then the Capitol Mall exit, the Sacramento skyline rising, the Capitol Dome steady even in January's flat gray light. I parked in a garage for $3 an hour and walked 2 blocks to 555 Capitol Mall. Morrison and Associates occupied the 15th floor. The building was modern glass walls, marble floors in the reception area, furniture that signaled wealth without flaunting it. The receptionist greeted me with a knowing smile. Mr. Morrison is expecting you, Mr. Ross. Conference room B. My leather document folder felt heavy in my hands, weighted with 3 years of my life, every detail recorded. Robert Morrison stood when I entered, 52, sharply dressed, reading glasses hanging by a chain. We'd known each other through insurance circles for 2 decades. He handled contract work when I sold Ross Insurance Group, though we hadn't crossed paths much since. Harold called me, he said, mentioned a family issue that might turn legal. I placed the thick folder on the table. It already is legal. I evicted my daughter and son-in-law on Christmas night. Now I'm preparing for whatever retaliation comes next. On Christmas, he asked, eyebrows raised, bold, but sometimes necessary. He listened as I explained the eviction, nodding occasionally. You followed procedure, and police presence gives you a strong foundation. But 3 years is long enough for them to argue constructive tenancy. In California, if they contributed to household bills or property upkeep, they could try claiming tenant rights, or even constructive possession. I pushed the folder toward him. They didn't contribute a penny, and I can prove it. He opened the folder. Neatly organized bank statements, canceled checks, emails, receipts, all tabbed by color. His eyebrows rose with every page. March 2022, $1.45.0, check to Sterling Construction, memo line, debt repayment, July 2022, $8,000 to Morrison and Associates. He looked up. I didn't realize you paid for Michael's bankruptcy filing. You handled the case. I paid the bill. He continued flipping through utilities. All in my name, all charged to my card. Grocery receipts spanning 3 years. Then he reached the email printouts. One message from Amanda, November 2023, caught his eye. Thanks for letting us stay in your house, Dad. We'll get back on our feet soon, your house. He read aloud. She acknowledged ownership explicitly. She did. Robert leaned back, sliding off his glasses. Waldo, this is thorough. Most people don't keep records with this level of detail. I spent 35 years in insurance, Robert. Documentation was my profession. Still, this level suggests you expected this. Not expected, prepared. There's a difference. He studied me before shifting into full attorney mode. With this level of documentation, we can beat anything they try. Though with your pension, I'm not on a pension, Robert. He paused mid-sentence. What, Ross Insurance Group? I sold it in 2020. You handled part of the transaction. I watched the recognition settle in. That sale was $2-3 million. You never told them. I wanted to see who they were when money wasn't on the table. So you hid your wealth to avoid feeding greed, and they became greedy anyway. I gave a bitter half-smile. I spent decades watching families tear themselves apart over insurance payouts. Thought I was protecting mine. And you couldn't know. I just learned the truth earlier. Robert tapped the folder. Here's what I recommend. File first. Civil suit. Recover your $78,000. Get in front of this. No. I want them to file first. I want them to reveal their hand. That's risky. If they strike first, they will strike first. Michael's pride doesn't allow anything else. And I'll be ready. He hesitated, then nodded. My standard rate is $450 an hour. Litigation retainer is $15,000. I was already reaching for my checkbook. Draft the agreement. I'll wire more if necessary. You're certain. Family lawsuits are ugly. I finished for him. It's already ugly. I'm simply making sure I don't lose. I wrote the check cleanly, tore it from the book, slid it across the desk. The ease with which I moved it said more than any explanation could. Robert gathered the documents. I'll prepare a full defense package. Everything we'll need. I stood, collecting my folder. Also draft a civil complaint for the $78,000. Keep it ready, but don't file. You really believe they'll sue first? Michael Sterling doesn't accept defeat. He'll sue. And when he does, we counterpunch. We shook hands. Not the polite greeting from earlier, but the solid handshake of two strategists aligned. My hand was on the door when Robert spoke again. Waldo, why wait a week to see me? I looked back over my shoulder. I wanted to give them time to make a mistake. Desperate people always do. I stepped into the hallway. The elevator glowed at the far end, winter light spilling through the windows. I felt like a man moving forward with purpose. January arrived cold and gray. Through Harold's network, I heard that Amanda and Michael had found an apartment in Del Paso Heights. Rough neighborhood, worlds away from Land Park. I hadn't sought out that information. News travels easily in a city where people talk. 3 weeks into the new year, the envelope came. Late afternoon. A process server at my door with thick paper, embossed seals, formal legal language. Sterling vs. Ross, civil complaint. I called Harold immediately. Within 15 minutes, we were on my back porch despite the cold. Our Thursday chess game still sat half, finished on the table. We slid the pieces aside to spread out the legal documents. I read the contents and laughed not bitterly, but in genuine disbelief at their audacity. This is serious, Waldo, Harold warned. They're actually suing, claiming partial ownership of your house. They're arguing that I owe them for letting them live in my own home. Harold scanned the pages. They're citing adverse possession and constructive ownership through improvements. What improvements? Michael fixed a leaky faucet once. I bought the parts. My eyes caught the signature. Linda Fitzgerald, attorney at law. I knew the name immediately. I pulled out my laptop, searched the California State Bar records as Harold watched. Linda Fitzgerald, member since 2010, 127 cases, win rate around 19%, meaning she'd lost roughly 80% of her caseload. How is she still practicing? Harold muttered. Because desperate people hire desperate lawyers, and desperate lawyers charge desperate rates. $5,000 isn't cheap for people living in Del Paso Heights. No, which means they're wagering everything on this lawsuit. They'll lose everything. Harold moved a knight on the chessboard, assessing the position. They've made their opening move aggressive but sloppy. I countered with my bishop, placing it with steady intention. Every aggressive opening has a weak point. You just wait for them to show it. This isn't chess, Waldo. Maybe not, but the principle holds. Patience defeats panic. I called Robert Morrison and put him on speaker. Got the filing, Robert said. Linda Fitzgerald sent a courtesy copy. It was ambitious, you said. I'd call it delusional. Adverse possession in California requires a minimum of 5 years. They'd only lived there for 3. The claim was dead before it even began. When's the hearing? I asked. February 12th, Robert answered. Preliminary hearing to assess merit. Judge Harriet Williams. Her name I recognized immediately. Tough reputation, no patience for nonsense. This would be brief. The weeks leading up to the hearing crept by with the same cold, hard persistence as January itself. I kept to my routine. Chess games with Harold, long walks through Land Park, mentally preparing for whatever would come next. Amanda called once more. I let it ring into voicemail. Dad, please drop this. We can work it out, please. Her voice was frayed and exhausted. I listened once, deleted it, and felt nothing. February 12th arrived gray and biting. Sacramento County Superior Court 7th and 29th. An imposing slab of government downtown. Robert and I arrived at 8:45 for the 9:00 hearing. Security screening, metal detectors, then the elevator to the 4th floor. Department 42. The courtroom smelled faintly of wood polish and aging law books. The California state seal hovered above the bench. Judge Williams's brass nameplate gleamed under the lights. Michael and Amanda were already seated with their attorney, Linda Fitzgerald, their first appearance since Christmas night. Michael wore a cheap, poorly fitted suit, likely borrowed. He hadn't shaved properly. Shadows clung beneath his eyes. Amanda wore a modest business, casual outfit from Target or Walmart. Her hair was less styled than usual, makeup minimal. Jenny sat between them, miserable and small. Fitzgerald lugged an overstuffed briefcase barely containing its papers, looking frazzled and unprepared. Michael spotted me, his face flushed instantly from pale to pink, then red, then an almost comical purple, like a time-lapse sunset fueled by rage. Amanda refused to look at me. Jenny gave a tiny, sad wave. I nodded back. All rise. A Department 42 came to order. Honorable Harriet Williams presiding. Judge Williams, an African-American woman in her 60s with gray hair pulled into a professional bun and reading glasses on a chain, surveyed the courtroom with the weary confidence of someone who had witnessed every variety of foolishness imaginable. She took her seat and skimmed the file. I've reviewed the complaint and the response. Let's get straight to it. MS. Fitzgerald, your clients are claiming what exactly? Fitzgerald stood, fumbling through papers. Your Honor, my clients resided at the defendant's property for 36 months. They achieved adverse possession through continuous occupancy. Adverse possession requires 5 years in California. Judge Williams cut in. Your clients lived there 3. Explain the discrepancy. Well, Your Honor, there's also constructive ownership through improvements made to the property. What improvements? Documented how? My clients will testify to household repairs and general upkeep. Testimony isn't sufficient to establish ownership, M.S. Fitzgerald. Do you have receipts, invoices, bank statements demonstrating these improvements? Testimonial evidence should be sufficient to establish. Not in my courtroom, Judge Williams said. Next argument. Robert rose, calm and meticulously prepared. Your Honor, I have comprehensive documentation, including bank statements showing Mr. Ross paid every household expense for the entire 36 months. He handed exhibits to the clerk. Additionally, we have email evidence from November 2023 in which plaintiff Amanda Ross Sterling explicitly refers to this as Dad's house. Her words. He connected his laptop to the courtroom projector. Amanda's email appeared in bold text for all to see. Thanks for letting us stay in your house, Dad. Michael's purple complexion deepened like an overboiled beet, I thought. Judge Williams examined the document silently for 2 long minutes. Then she set her glasses aside. I've seen enough. M.S. Fitzgerald, your clients have no case. Adverse possession requires 5 years. No lease existed. No rent was paid. No ownership was created. This is a family dispute. Masquerading as a property claim, motion to dismiss granted, case dismissed with prejudice. Fitzgerald made a feeble attempt. Your Honor, if we could request an extension to gather additional? No, Judge Williams said sharply. With prejudice means final, M.S. Fitzgerald. Michael surged halfway to his feet. This is, sit down, Mr. Sterling. Judge Williams snapped, her voice suddenly sharp as a blade. You are fortunate I am not sanctioning your attorney for wasting this court's time. All rise, the clerk called as the judge exited. The entire hearing had lasted less than 15 minutes. Out in the marble hallway, Michael trembled with rage. He stalked toward me until Robert stepped cleanly between us. Don't, Robert warned. You're already on thin ice, Mr. Sterling. You'll regret this, old man, Michael hissed. This isn't over. People nearby turned to stare. Amanda tugged at his arm. Michael, stop. Let's just go, please. Fitzgerald scurried away without acknowledging them, fully aware she had failed spectacularly. I stood steady, watching Michael unravel like a laboratory reaction, predictable, inevitable, complete. Watching him melt down in a courthouse hallway, purple, faced and powerless, stirred something I didn't expect. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just a cold, clear certainty that this wasn't finished. My hand slipped into my coat pocket, brushing the folder Robert had handed me earlier, the one labeled Phase 2, Civil Recovery Complaint, $78000. The counterpunch was ready. The weeks that followed the dismissal passed with deceptive quiet. Michael and Amanda disappeared from my view, licking their wounds in Del Paso Heights. But I wasn't idle. Winning the case had stopped their land grab. It hadn't recovered what I'd lost. And justice, real justice, required a deeper excavation. In early March, I made a phone call I'd been planning since Christmas night. After 35 years in insurance, I knew the anatomy of fraud, and I knew Michael. A civil suit would get me a judgment I'd never collect. He had no assets, no income, already drowning in debt. But if I couldn't reclaim my money, I could at least ensure consequences reached him. I called Thomas Richardson, an old colleague now working in the California Department of Insurance Fraud Investigation Division. We hadn't spoken in 18 months, though we maintained cordial ties. Thomas, it's Waldo Ross. Waldo, how's retirement treating you? Still figuring it out. Let me buy you lunch before you escape the industry for good. Firehouse work for you. Haven't been in months. Tuesday. Perfect. Noon. Tuesday arrived crisp and clear. The Firehouse, an upscale spot on 2nd Street, was ideal for quiet professional lunches. I arrived early, as always, taking the corner table to maintain control of the setting. Thomas walked in at precisely noon 58. Gray hair, a careful bureaucrat's demeanor. We exchanged small talk over weather, colleagues, his upcoming retirement. I waited until the entrees had arrived. cut my steak, took a slow bite, swallowed, and reached for my water. Remember that construction company that folded a few years back, Sterling Construction? Thomas paused mid-chew. Sterling, yeah, I remember something. We had complaints on them. What kind of complaints? Insurance fraud allegations, inflated damage claims. We opened an investigation, but the company declared bankruptcy before we could finish, so the case just stalled. So nothing was resolved. I asked, not exactly. When the business disappears, we move on to active cases. A seed planted. After lunch, I returned home and began digging Sacramento County business records, bankruptcy filings, all of it public. My search turned up something unexpected. A man named Kevin Torres listed as owning a 25% stake in Sterling Construction, LLC. More digging revealed he now worked as a foreman for Davidson Brothers Construction. I called the company, introduced myself as an old family friend, and a helpful receptionist gave me Kevin's cell number without hesitation. That evening, I made the call. Kevin Torres, my name is Waldo Ross. I'm Michael Sterling's former father-in-law. His response was immediate, sharp, bitter. Former, good for you, that guy's a snake. The venom in his voice was promising. That's becoming clearer by the day, I said. I paid $45,000 trying to keep Sterling Construction alive. I'm learning it wasn't worth saving. 45 grand, Kevin barked. Man, you got played. That company was rotten from the start. Then the story began pouring out of him. Sterling Construction had specialized in commercial renovations. In 2019, they took on a warehouse renovation project. During the job, a section of the roof was accidentally damaged. Michael filed an insurance claim for $120,000 repairs and business interruption. The carrier paid, but Kevin said the actual repair cost was $40,000. Michael pocketed the $80,000 difference. I confronted him, Kevin said. He called it creative accounting. I called it fraud. And what you call it after he forced you out of the business? I asked. Theft, Kevin replied. But my lawyer said fighting it would cost more than I'd ever get back. Still kept the documents out of spite. Do you still have them, the originals? Every page, invoices, claim forms, emails. Why? What would happen if those documents ended up in the hands of the Department of Insurance? Silence on the line. Then, with real evidence and a credible witness, they'd investigate, for sure. Where can you send them? I asked. Kevin exhaled slowly. Give me the address. I'd love to nail that bastard. I gave him Robert Morrison's office address. 1 week later, Robert called me. We got a package from Kevin Torres, he said. Insurance claim forms, repair invoices, an entire email chain. Waldo, this is devastating. Clear insurance fraud, and $80,000 discrepancy. Can you forward everything to the Department of Insurance anonymously? I'll file it as a concerned party. No names unless they request witness testimony. Do it, I said. This could lead to criminal charges, very likely. While examining Michael's business records, I'd noticed something else. The IRS had filed a lien against him personally for $23,000 in unpaid payroll taxes from 2021. The lien was still active, debt unpaid. I called Robert. Did you know Michael owes the IRS $23,000? No, but that's public record. Why do you bring it up? Because the IRS doesn't forget, I said, and they're harder to outrun than family. 2 weeks after Robert filed the complaint, we received official notice. The California Department of Insurance had opened a formal investigation. Case number, Doimer 2025, Saki 11008, 147. Michael would be contacted for an interview if the evidence warranted a criminal referral to the Sacramento County District Attorney. The confirmation arrived while I was playing chess with Harold on my back porch. Weak March sunlight warmed the wooden table. Harold moved his knight and looked at me. "You're enjoying this," he said, watching him squirm. "I'm ensuring justice is served," I replied. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Sounds like revenge." I studied the board, then slid my bishop across its diagonal path, lifting Harold's queen from the board. I set it gently among the captured pieces. "Call it whatever you want," I said. "By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." Harold stared at the board. "Didn't see that coming. That's the point of the long game," I said, my hand resting on the captured queen. Warm wood, smooth beneath my thumb. The machinery of government was now engaged, wheels turning on their own. I pictured Michael opening a letter from the Department of Insurance, panic igniting in his chest as his past finally surged forward to meet him. The queen sat silent in my palm power already taken. The game was progressing exactly as designed. April arrived heavy with the kind of rain Northern California excels at. Relentless, cold, miserable, perfect weather for miserable developments. The insurance fraud investigation crawled forward with bureaucratic sluggishness, but the consequences spread faster than expected. I learned of Michael's downfall secondhand, as the best gossip often arrives. The first call came from an acquaintance in the construction field. "Waldo thought you'd want to know," word spreading about Sterling, Department of Insurance investigation, insurance fraud. "I hadn't heard," I said. "When did this go public?" "Last week. Sacramento's construction world is tiny. A guy I know was giving Sterling cash work. Fired him the moment he found out. Liability risk. Nobody wants an active fraud investigation on their crew." Michael's under-the-table income evaporated instantly. Harold later mentioned he'd seen Amanda at her mailbox, looking hollow and distressed. By week's end, through Harold's neighborhood grapevine, I heard about the IRS letter, a demand for $23.00 in unpaid payroll taxes plus $4,800 in penalties. Total owed $27,830. Day deadline, threats of wage garnishment and asset seizure. They had no assets. No wages? The IRS didn't care. Interest accrued daily. Then in early May, my phone rang. Jenny's name glowed on the screen, for the first time since the eviction. "Grandpa, can we meet? I need to talk to someone normal." "Of course, sweetheart. When and where?" "Gunther's, tomorrow afternoon. I can't be in that apartment anymore." "I'll be there at 2. Thank you. And Grandpa, I'm sorry for everything. We met at Gunther's Ice Cream in Land Park. Outdoor seating, spring trying to break through April's gloom. Jenny sat across from me with an untouched cone melting down her hand. I reached over gently, took it from her, set it aside, then took her hand instead. "They fight every night," she said. "About money, about the investigation, about you, about me. Dad blames you for everything. Says you're rich and stingy. Mom finally yelled back that you gave us $45,000. Jenny's voice trembled. "Some letter came," she said. Mom opened it and started screaming. I'd never heard her like that. "What did she say?" "She yelled, 'You stole $80,000. You committed fraud.' And Dad yelled, 'I did what I had to do.' Mom shouted, 'You destroyed us. My father threw us out because of your crimes.' He said, 'Your father could have helped us instead of keeping score.' Mom told him, 'He gave us everything, and you threw it in his face.'" The first time Amanda had placed blame correctly not on me, but on her husband. Jenny continued, "Creditors call constantly, sometimes 10 times a day, 6 credit cards, all maxed out, $35,000. They scream at each other until the neighbors pound on walls." Through Jenny's trembling account, the full picture assembled itself. Amanda truly hadn't known about Michael's fraud. Her outrage was real. Betrayal, shock, fury. But Michael deflected, insisting the real villain was me for not giving them more. The irony, his assessment of my wealth was accurate. His conclusions about my responsibilities were not. Word spread through the Land Park community. Social media lit up. Helen Martinez, president of the Neighborhood Association, posted a thinly veiled comment on Facebook. Some people don't value kindness until it's gone. Seeing someone treat their elderly parent like a servant, then act shocked when consequences arrive, that's not misfortune. That's karma. 140 likes, 50 comments. Several people tagged threads that made it obvious she was referring to Amanda. Amanda was still in the Land Park Facebook group. She saw it. Public shame hit her hardest of all, in the neighborhood where she'd grown up. Jenny told me Amanda cried in the bathroom constantly, avoided local stores, unfriended old friends. Her support system evaporated. Her father gone, her circle gone. She found herself isolated, humiliated, and trapped with a man she now despised. In early June, Jenny sent a text. They're getting divorced. Mom filed today. I don't know what happens to me. I'm scared. I called Robert Morrison. My daughter is divorcing Michael. Does that affect our strategy? You're still planning to sue her? He asked. Your own daughter. I'm planning to recover what I'm owed. I said. She made her choices. A pause. Then, all right, you'll call. Through Robert's connections, I learned the details of the divorce. Michael kept his 2008 Ford truck, worth about 30,000, but with 5 zeros, 00 still owed on it. Amanda kept her 2012 Honda, valued at 40,000 with 2 zeros, 00 left on the loan. Their credit card debt was divided equally, 17,500 each. The IRS balance was split as well, 13,900 apiece. They both still owed 1,000 in legal fees. When everything was counted, each walked away carrying roughly 32,000 in debt and almost no assets. Neither of them had the income to pay any of it. Bankruptcy was practically inevitable. One evening, Harold and I sat on my back porch, watching the late spring sky fade into dusk. He exhaled slowly. You've destroyed them financially, both of them. I've done nothing, I answered. Michael destroyed himself, and Amanda, she's my daughter. She made her own choices. She chose him over me. She chose silence over honesty. She chose comfort over integrity. Can you live with that? He asked. I paused. Can I live with them treating me like a servant in my own home? Yes, I can live with justice. Through different sources, I came to understand the full picture. Michael unemployed, under criminal investigation, divorced, drowning in 32,000 of debt, living in a tiny studio. Amanda, working part-time in retail, also divorced, sharing an apartment with a coworker, 32,000 in debt. Jenny was staying with Amanda, refusing to see Michael, struggling emotionally after everything that had happened. Both filed for bankruptcy in June, though bankruptcy wouldn't wipe their IRS balance or any restitution from a possible fraud conviction. Near the end of June, an email arrived from Robert Morrison. Subject line, DOI investigation update. Harold stood behind me as I opened my laptop. My cursor hovered over the message. More bad news for them, he murmured. Justice isn't bad news, I said quietly. It's simply news. When does it end? He asked. My finger moved across the trackpad. When the scales balance, I clicked. The email began loading, text appearing slowly across the glowing screen. Harold leaned in, reading as the words appeared. I felt the familiar weight settle in my chest. Criminal charges, restitution, the final stage of consequences that Michael had earned through his own decisions. The room dimmed as the sun set, the monitor brightening the shapes of the words that spelled out what came next. July arrived with a heat that turned Sacramento into an oven. The Department of Insurance investigation concluded with 2 criminal charges of insurance fraud filed against Michael. I didn't learn this from the news, but from Robert's email, the one I opened at the end of June. The legal machinery was closing in on Michael with cold, mechanical precision. I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow, like a chess player who had won the match but lost the challenge. The knock on my front door came on a Wednesday afternoon, unexpected yet strangely inevitable. I had the windows open for a small breeze, ceiling fans spinning lazily overhead. Harold always came by on Thursdays, not Wednesdays. So when I opened the door and saw Amanda standing on my porch, I felt the world pause. It was the first time I had seen her since the courthouse in February, 5 long months. She looked older, thinner, her hair pulled back plainly. A cheap work shirt peeked out beneath a light jacket, retail uniform clothes. Exhaustion shaped every feature of her face. "Dad, can I come in just for a few minutes?" I stepped aside without responding. She entered carefully, glancing around as if walking through a museum of a life she no longer recognized. The house had changed. I'd reclaimed it, redecorated subtly. The absence of her family's belongings echoed through the open spaces and rearranged furniture. We sat in the living room. I gestured to a chair, not the couch. I kept space between us. She sat, hesitant, struggling to find words. I waited. I offered no help. Finally, her voice trembled. "Dad, I'm so sorry for everything." She had rehearsed. I could hear the effort in her cadence, but emotion cracked the polished lines. "I was blind. Michael manipulated me, but that's not an excuse. I let him treat you horribly. I stayed silent when I should have defended you." Her voice tightened. "I chose comfort over integrity. I chose him over you, and I lost everything that mattered." I listened, offering neither nod nor interruption. Part of me saw my daughter as she had been years ago, the child I'd raised, now broken and trying to gather the pieces. Another part of me remembered Christmas night, her silence at that table, the years of being invisible in my own home. The tension between fatherhood and justice tightened inside me. My hands gripped the chair arms. She continued, voice unsteady, "I'm not asking to move back, or for money or help. I have a job now, retail, minimum wage, but it's something. I'm learning how to take responsibility. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I lost, and I understand who you were trying to be for us. You gave us everything, and we threw it away." Her clarity, the acknowledgement without begging, struck me deeper than any tears could. When she left, making no promises and asking for nothing, I sat alone, trying to process it. I called Harold. He arrived quickly and found me on the porch, staring into the darkening yard. "She apologized," I said. "She understands now." "What did you say?" he asked. "Nothing. I didn't know how." "Do you want to forgive her?" "I want to forgive her," I admitted. But every time I start to soften, I remember the years, the silence, the contempt. Harold's voice was gentle. "Forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. You can forgive her and still hold her accountable." In the following days, my decision settled like dust finding its place. I had been holding on to the civil complaint since February. Robert had drafted it, and I had never filed it. But now it felt necessary, not as retaliation, as balance. They had taken from me, financially and emotionally. What could be repaid should be repaid. Forgiveness could walk alongside accountability. I called Robert Morrison. "File the complaint 78000 against both of them, jointly and severally." "You're certain?" he asked. "Especially after Amanda's apology." "Because of her apology," I said. "She understands consequences now. This is part of them." Robert filed in Sacramento County Superior Court. $78,000 in documented loans and expenses. Both Michael and Amanda would receive summons. Court date in late August. Final hearing in September. A week after the filing, I called Amanda. We met at Pete's Coffee downtown. I slid a folder toward her. "I filed a civil suit," I said. $78,000. Shock flashed across her face, then hurt, then something softer, more resigned. "But I apologized," she whispered. "I know, and I heard you, but apologies don't eliminate debt. You and Michael took from me. Now you repay what you can." "We don't have that kind of money. We're bankrupt. The court will set a payment plan. You'll pay whatever you can afford." Michael's meeting was different. He arrived at my house with Linda Fitzgerald, somehow still his lawyer despite her repeated failures. Robert sat beside me as I presented the same information. Michael exploded. "You can't do this. Those were gifts. Family helping family." Robert responded calmly. "We have multiple emails where you promise repayment once you get back on your feet. That constitutes a loan. This is ridiculous. You're wealthy. You don't need the money." "What I have is irrelevant," I said. "What you owe is documented. We'll fight this," he snapped. "You'll lose again," I said. "But that's your choice." That evening, Amanda called me. Her voice was strained from crying, but steadier than before. "Dad, I don't have the money, but I understand why you're doing this. You're teaching me something I should have learned years ago, that actions have consequences. I'll pay, however long it takes. It's what I owe." Her response, grounded in acceptance rather than anger, revealed her growth. She was learning. I could forgive someone who faced consequences without running from them. That night, alone in my study, I found myself looking at Amanda's childhood photographs on the shelf pictures I hadn't allowed myself to touch for months. In that quiet moment, I recognized that punishment might satisfy justice, but accountability could also open the door to redemption. The $78,000 might take years to repay, but the process itself mattered, the lesson mattered. Harold's familiar words echoed in my mind. Forgiveness doesn't mean erasing consequences. And another thought rose within me, but consequences can teach what forgiveness alone never could. In late August, the notice arrived. Final hearing, September 15th, 2025, 9:00 a.m. Judge Harriet Williams presiding. I set the paper beside the chessboard where Harold and I had left a game in mid-play. I picked up the white queen, turning it between my fingers. Harold's voice surprised me from the doorway. "Ready for endgame?" I didn't turn. "It's not about winning anymore, Harold. It's about finishing well." I set the queen back on the board and let my hand rest on the smooth wood, feeling the significance of all that lay ahead. September 15th arrived with that distinctive Northern California clarity, sharp air, crisp gold light, the sense of something closing and something opening at the same time. I dressed with intention, not vanity. The navy suit I wore the day I finalized the sale of Ross Insurance Group 5 years earlier. The watch my late wife gave me for our 20th anniversary, my father's cufflinks, a kind of armor woven from memory. By 8:30, Robert Morrison's Mercedes pulled into my driveway. We drove to Sacramento County Superior Court, 729 H Street. Same building where the charges against me had been dismissed in February. But this time was different. Different floor, different department, different purpose. No longer defending myself, now pursuing justice. Amanda sat alone on a bench in the hallway, retail uniform visible beneath her jacket. Michael stood at a distance beside Linda Fitzgerald, shoulders slumped, face drawn. Jenny lifted a small hand to wave at me. I returned it with a nod. All rise. Department 28 is now in session. Honorable Harriet Williams presiding. Judge Williams stepped to the bench, flipping through our case file. Recognition flickered across her face. "Mr. Ross, Mr. Sterling, M.S. Ross, we meet again, this time for civil recovery." There was a dry weariness in her voice. She had witnessed our family's collapse firsthand. "I've reviewed the materials. Let's proceed efficiently. I suspect everyone here wants closure." Robert presented the case cleanly, steadily. Bank statements, canceled checks, receipts, emails. A complete timeline from March 2022 through December 2024. Total, $78,000. Amanda's email appeared on the screen again. "Thanks for letting us stay in your house." Then Michael's text. "We'll pay you back within 2 years." Evidence stacked neatly, indisputably. Linda Fitzgerald had no rebuttal. Before issuing her ruling, Judge Williams said, "I understand there's a related criminal matter." Linda rose. "Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Sterling has accepted a plea agreement. 2 years probation, community service, and restitution to the insurance company. $80,000. Irrelevant to his ability to pay in this matter, the judge said, removing her glasses and fixing her attention on Michael and Amanda. You lived in Mr. Ross's home for 3 years. You paid no rent. You contributed nothing to household costs. You promised repayment. The evidence is overwhelming. She paused, then delivered the decision. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $78,000. She continued, you are both effectively judgment-proof bankrupt, no assets, limited income. Payment terms will be $500 per month each, $1,000 total, until paid in full. That is 78 months, 6.5 years, plus $8,000 in court costs, joint and several liability. If one of you defaults, the other remains responsible for the entire remaining balance. Amanda bowed her head in acceptance. Michael opened his mouth to protest, but Linda placed a hand on his arm and he fell silent. Jenny looked visibly relieved. Mr. Ross, Judge Williams said, turning back to me, you've been patient and thorough. Justice is served. Then, to the defendants, use these years wisely. 6 years is long enough to rebuild. Outside in the corridor, Michael strode away immediately, shoulders hunched, expression defeated. Amanda lingered, then approached with Jenny at her side. Robert stepped back to give us space. Dad, she said quietly, I deserve this. We both do, all of it. Her voice was steady, emptied of tears, filled instead with acceptance. You taught me something I never learned anywhere else. I didn't value what I had. I took you for granted. This judgment, the payments, the years. This is fair. This is justice. It's not punishment, Amanda, I said. It's accountability. I know that now. I was a terrible daughter, she said, but maybe I can be better, starting now. Michael stood by the elevators. He turned, took 2 reluctant steps toward me, muttered, sorry for everything. His eyes stayed down. Voice flat. No sincerity, only obligation. He stepped into the elevator and the doors closed. That was the last I saw of him. Jenny moved toward me and hugged me softly. The first time in 9 months. Grandpa, I understand why you did this. All of it. Thank you for showing me what it looks like to stand up for yourself. I held her gently. You're always welcome to visit, Jenny. Then I looked at Amanda. With your permission. Of course, she said immediately. You're her grandfather. She needs you. It was the first true acknowledgement of possible reconciliation. I forgive you, I told Amanda, but forgiveness isn't forgetting. Trust takes years to rebuild, not minutes. You'll make your payments. You'll live your life, and we'll see who you become. That's fair, she said, more than fair. When you're ready, I added, when you've shown real change we can talk, really talk. I'll be ready, she whispered. However long it takes, we didn't hug, not yet, but there was recognition between us at beginning. Robert drove me home. We were silent for most of the trip until he finally said, you did what you set out to do, did I? I murmured. I'm not sure anymore what my goal was. You got justice, he said. Your home back, your dignity. I got accountability, I replied. Whether that's justice, we'll see. When we arrived at 2008, 147 Maple Grove Drive, I looked at my house fully mine again. That evening, Harold came over for chess. We sat on the back porch in the warm September light, mint tea steaming between us. The board lay between us. I had a clear advantage. Did you get what you wanted? He asked. I considered the question. I got my peace back, my home, my dignity, and they got a lesson they'll carry for the rest of their lives. 6.5 years of payments. That's a long lesson. Some lessons need time. Harold said, and Amanda, do you think she's really changing? I think she's beginning to. I said, whether she completes that change, that's up to her. So what did you learn from all this? He asked. I slid my bishop across the board. That the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's showing them the truth about who they are. Michael saw his fraud, his manipulation, his refusal to take responsibility. Amanda saw her silence, her enabling her part in all of it. I looked at Harold, and I saw that I'm stronger than I believed, and more alone than I want to be. Then I smiled faintly. But not completely alone. I moved my final piece. Checkmate. Harold studied the board, nodded. Didn't see that coming. Long game. The longest games teach the most, I said. We sat together in easy silence as evening cooled around us. Light from the house spilled across the porch. Inside, my home, my space, my peace. Outside, the neighborhood I'd lived in for 27 years. Everything familiar, everything changed. I lifted my teacup, drank the warm mint tea, and watched the sun sink behind the rooftops. A sunset that felt like both an ending and a beginning. The game was over. I had won, but more importantly, I had held onto my integrity. That, I realized, was the real victory. And if you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you.